What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live, back with another week of NFL picks. The last week of the 2020 NFL regular season is here. Week 17 of the 2020 NFL season. A full season of picks. We're almost in January, guys. We are almost in January football season, and that means we are almost at the playoffs for the NFL. This is the last regular season picks video. Of course, I do my picks all season, so that includes the playoffs. And typically in the playoffs, once we get there, I do more in-depth, analytically driven statistics, everything that you could think of. Those picks videos are always very fun for me because you only have so many games to focus on, so you can kind of get a little bit more into the weeds than just the typical week. But we are going to make this last week of the regular season very, very fun. Hope you guys are here for the entire video. If you are here live, get in that comment section. If you are not here live, let me know your picks for week 17 and how you think the playoffs are going to kind of unfold and who's going to take which seeds. And in terms of the big playoff driven matchups for this week, the games that really matter, let me know who you think will win those games. Before we get started, before I give you my record for this season thus far, going into the last week, and before I give you each and every pick and preview for every game, make sure you do spike that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL and weekly NFL picks, straight up and versus the spread. Comment your questions, comment your opinion in the comment section live or in the comment section below if you are not live with me. All right, so let's first, I have a couple things to say and a couple things to get out of the way here. So before the season, I don't know if you guys remember, but I did a video with Dilly Vanilli and AC, Mr. Adam Kordick, and we had an NFL team draft. So essentially how it worked was each and every one of us picked 10 teams. So the three of us split the league into thirds, and we each picked a draft of 10 teams. And there was a certain set of criteria that basically would take place throughout the season. Now, it's not over yet. I want to stress that it's not over yet. But I do have the standings going into the last week of the regular season. And then it also gets into the playoffs, okay? There's certain points. So basically how it worked, just to reinvigorate your memory, it's a point per win during the regular season. And then during the playoffs, you have things like 5 points for getting to the divisional round, 10 points for getting to the conference championship, 10 points for winning the Super Bowl, 10 points for getting the Super Bowl. So there's all those sort of points involved in the playoffs. But so far, going into the last week of the regular season, this is how it looks between myself, Dilly, and AC. And so far, I could say that it's basically become a two-team race, basically. So let's take a look. So I had the first pick in the draft. I ended up picking Kansas City. I am leading the pack with 87 total points. My first 5 picks are all playoff teams this year. So for all of you guys that say I have terrible predictions, well, I have better predictions than Dilly and AC. Because we had a team draft. It was all even across the board. I have the Chiefs, the Saints, the Bucks, the Browns, the Steelers, all in the playoffs. Browns might not make it, but they at least have double-digit wins. My team finished off with the Patriots, Lions, Chargers, Rams, who was a very big underdog pick in the second to last round. Very proud of that one. And the Cincinnati Bengals in the last round. Now, Dilly is out. Okay, Dilly is pretty much out. 63 points. He is 24 points behind me and 20 points behind AC. AC is right behind me, only 4 points, so it's pretty much between me and AC for winning this team draft thing. Because he has Seattle, he has the Eagles, who stunk. That was probably his worst pick. That's a biased pick. I remember at the moment he picked them way too high, in my opinion. It was a biased pick. May cost him this thing. But Seattle, Buffalo is a great pick. Indianapolis was a very good pick. Arizona was a good pick. But really where he made his hay was at the end of the draft. When you look at Chicago and Miami, and even to some degree in the 6th round with Tennessee in comparison to my pick with the Patriots and Dilly's pick with the Vikings. So, interesting. That is the NFL team draft, how it looks going into week 17. But I just like to update you guys on those standings, and I'll keep updating you as we get closer to the Super Bowl and eventually the Super Bowl champion. It's just a little contest between myself, AC, and Dilly Vanilli. But it's looking like a 2-person race going into the playoffs with me leading and AC in second place. All right, so let's take a look at my record for the season thus far, which is... Let me take a look. Do I even have my standings board up here? I'm going to have to pull it up. What's going on, guys? I know Dilly got killed, man. I don't even know what happened to Dilly. Because the funny thing is, I thought that Dilly had, like, the best team after the draft. Like, I thought he was sitting pretty. And that just, I think he really messed up his bottom 5 rounds. Like, his last 2 to 3 rounds were absolutely atrocious. I mean, the guy picked the Jets. So that's all you need to know about that. So let's take a look at the record so far this season. 164 and 72 straight up. We are 136 and 100 versus the spread. These are not including my best bet picks, which are independent and my best bets. But these are my picks on this weekly series for straight up and against the spread. So that's how I'm looking so far this year, and we're looking to close off strong. Last week, I went 9 and 7, both versus the spread and straight up, I believe. And it was, again, another week where it was like totally opposite, where it just ended up that I had the same record, but it wasn't the same games. So that's sometimes just how it works out. But enough of that. Let's get into the picks. All right, so let's start off with, there are no Thursday games. There are no Saturday games. I think everything is on Sunday. There are no Monday night games, no Friday night games. It's just Sunday. And that starts with Tampa Bay and Atlanta. There's a large set of games in the 1 p.m. Eastern slot that I think are important. This one is important. It's not as important as some of the other games, but this one does matter for Tampa Bay, as Tampa Bay is looking in this game to confirm their spot as the number 5 seed. Now, on my notebook here, I have written down everything that could potentially happen in the playoffs, and I'm going to read this out before every game where it does matter, okay? Because I know people want to know. And I'm going to do the playoff machine at the very end based on my picks that I make in this video and then see how it comes out. So, Tampa Bay, if they win versus Atlanta, they confirm their spot. They clinch their seed as the number 5 seed in the NFC. If they lose for whatever reason to Atlanta and the Rams beat the Cardinals, they would lose the 5 seed and they would then become the 6 seed. So the lowest the Bucs can go is the 6 seed. The highest they can become is the 5th seed. They have no chance of passing New Orleans, and they have no chance of becoming the bye team. They have no chance of missing the playoffs. They confirmed that last week. So that's the Bucs. In this game, it's an interesting one because I feel like both of these teams, they just played 2 weeks ago. So I think there's a lot of carryover from the matchup. I really think that it's going to be a totally different game because we saw Tampa Bay basically in the first matchup. It was a tale of 2 halves. It was the first half, Atlanta dominated. Matt Ryan was comfortable. He was shredding the Bucs defense. Tom Brady, the offense, couldn't really get anything going. They couldn't score any points. And then the second half, it was like the total opposite. The Bucs defense dominated. Their offense dominated. Tom Brady was throwing missiles. Like, it was 2 different games inside the first matchup. In this game, Tampa Bay is minus 6.5, still under 7, over 6. And I believe that the game is going to be closer to what we saw in the second half. I don't think it's going to be quite the domination that we saw in the second half of the first matchup, but just something that I saw in that second half basically, kind of told us that Tampa Bay figured out what Atlanta was and what they were doing to Tampa to kind of throw them off their game and get the advantage early in that game. So that is kind of the way I see it swinging in week 17. I see it going more towards Tampa in this game. Atlanta has played some inspired football over the last couple of weeks, even being pretty close versus the Chiefs and nearly pulling off the upset in that game as double-digit dogs. Now, I think Atlanta is going to put forth an effort to upset the Bucs to finish the season on a high note. They don't have anything to fight for in terms of seeding or playoffs, but Raheem Morris has put together this team. They seem to be fighting for him, and they will try to win this game. On the flip side, obviously, Tampa is fighting for playoff seeding, so they will not take any starters out unless they all of a sudden are blowing out the Atlanta Falcons like they were Detroit. I don't expect that to happen. I just think that Tom Brady's going to continue his streak of excellent play, specifically with Mike Evans having another big game in this one. And I think that Tampa will once again score 30 points. Now, for Atlanta, I don't see them having the same success that they had the first time around on offense in the first half, but I still think they'll have some success passing the ball. Matt Ryan has had success passing the ball. They've been able to move the ball, and that's where Tampa Bay is kind of susceptible on defense. They don't really give up much on the ground, but they can give up stuff through the air. I think that Atlanta scores somewhere between 17 and 24 points, and Tampa Bay scores somewhere between high 20s and 35, 38 points. Now, Atlanta's defense is actually a pretty tough test the way that they've been playing like as of recently. So this would be a good gauge of how does Tampa take a team that they just played, adjust to that team, and kind of operate. Because that's something you may see in the playoffs. If they have to play Green Bay again, that's a rematch. If they have to play New Orleans for the third time, obviously that's a rematch. They could play the Rams again. That would be a rematch. They could play a number of teams from the teams that they played in the regular season, and the main thing you would be looking for from a Bucs perspective is how do they adjust to a team they've already played. So in this game, I will take Tampa Bay to win, and I will also take Tampa Bay to cover because I just think they have more to fight for, and I do believe that they're playing good offensive football. Tom Brady's playing his best ball of the season, and that will show out. This game's also in Tampa Bay as compared to last time it was in Atlanta. So I will take Tampa Bay to win. Another big Mike Evans game in this one. The second game is the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore is favored by 13 points. I really like Baltimore in this game. I really overall like how Baltimore has been playing recently over the last quarter of the season. Lamar Jackson is looking like his MVP form. They are starting to get their run game, their offensive line going and really playing at an elite level. Marquise Brown is showing up each and every week now. That's good to see. Even Mark Andrews a little bit here and there. And their defense has been bullying bad offenses. Now, we saw Cincinnati last week, where Cincinnati last week was able to beat the Texans, a really bad team, but with a really good quarterback. And Brandon Allen had the game of his life. I don't expect that to replicate versus Baltimore. Baltimore's defense is much better than Houston's. And I don't see this game being particularly interesting, engaging, or even competitive. I will take Baltimore to win the game. I will take Baltimore to cover the 13. It's a big spread, but I don't think Cincinnati belongs on the field with Baltimore. And we've seen over the last 4 to 5 games that they've played that Baltimore has utterly dominated this series of Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson-led teams versus these Bengals over the past couple of seasons with Taylor as their coach. Now, for Baltimore, this game is very important. They need to win to secure their seed in the playoffs. If they win, they are in. If they lose, they need basically Indianapolis or Cleveland to lose. So I'll say that again. Baltimore, if they win, they are in. If they lose, they need Cleveland or Indy to lose to get in. So I believe Baltimore wins this game, and not only do they win this game, but they continue their dominance over the last 4 to 5 weeks. That might be a best bet, by the way. I like that game. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. Dallas right now is favored by 1.5. Now, the way that this game is being discussed is like Dallas is the only team that has an opportunity to actually get to the playoffs here. But that's actually not the case. So this game is probably one of the more important. I think it might be the game of the week in terms of like both teams legitimately have a chance to make the playoffs. It's not just one side that's fighting for playoff seeding here. This game could determine the NFC East champ, and this is why it could be the stream of the week and likely will be the stream of the week this week, is the Giants and the Cowboys. It will be probably a close game indicated by the spread, and it will be probably a pretty fun game. Now, looking at what could happen here, both teams need Washington to lose on Sunday Night Football. Okay, both teams need Washington to lose. But whoever wins this game, the doors open for them to get in the playoffs. So it's not just the Cowboys. The Giants also are included in this. If the Giants win and Washington loses, the Giants are in. The Eagles are out. If the Cowboys win and Washington loses, the Cowboys are in. Washington is out. If Washington wins and either of these teams win, it doesn't matter. Washington is in. So, Dallas is favored, and I think it has to do with their recent performance. They won big versus Cincinnati. They won big versus the 49ers. They won big versus the Eagles. When looking at this game, it is a playoff atmosphere. It is a playoff game, in my opinion. I think the coaching edge so far this year would have to go to Joe Judge and his staff, but I don't think, like, Mike McCarthy has kind of figured out the formula, and Kellen Moore more specifically has figured out the formula for what this offense is, and kind of they have figured out how to play defense at their best ability. Their defensive line in Dallas has been playing really well and could really cause problems for Daniel Jones, especially if he is immobile in this game or if it's Colt McCoy. Either way, it's going to cause issues for that Giants passer, because I don't think that the Giants offensive line is very good in pass protection at all, and they really don't have a run game that scares anyone. They might have a few good runs here and there, but it's nothing really too special. It's one of the worst run games in the league in New York. So offensively, for the Giants, it's more about the receivers, the tight ends that they can cause problems with Slayton down the field, and you have guys like Shepard and Evan Ingram who are good as well. But I don't see this as an outmatched Dallas defense here. If anything, I think this could be one of the better Dallas defensive performances in this game. Given the quarterback play, given the Giants' recent offensive performance, it hasn't been too spectacular. If anything, it's been underwhelming. On the other side of the ball, the Giants' defense is solid. It's the better unit in this game. And I do believe that James Bradbury, Amari Cooper is going to be must-watch television. But I don't know that the Giants really have a defense that strikes fear into the Cowboys and their ability to play their game, right? The Giants don't really have a great pass rush. Where the Giants are good is they're very good at kind of disrupting the run game and keeping that to a minimum. So that could be a big deal when containing Zeke or Pollard, but I don't know if that's going to be a big deal when containing Andy Dalton. I don't know how much pressure is going to be under Andy Dalton in this game. I think the Giants will have to scheme up ways to get to Andy Dalton, and we've seen that the Cowboys have been able to get rid of the football quickly. Dalton has managed the game well, and he's getting his playmakers the football. This game feels like one that typically would be the Giants to win. Like, the Cowboys in years past choked this game. But when I look at the matchup, I think the Cowboys are playing better football right now. I'm more confident in their quarterback position right now. I like the way their offense is playing. They have more skill players that are better, bigger playmakers. Their offense is in tune. Their defense is playing inspired. I think the Cowboys find a way to win this game. I probably won't be betting on this game. I'll just be watching it for the fun of it, because this is a game that could swing either way. If Daniel Jones is fully healthy, ready to go, then the Giants have a much better chance of winning this game. But I don't know if I can count on that. And I just don't think I would pick a Colt McCoy team at all. So I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys and Andy Dalton to win this game, and hoping that Washington loses on Sunday night, basically, for them to get in. So that's my pick there. The next game is the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. This game has no playoff implications. Detroit has 5 wins. I think Minnesota has 6. I don't think Dalvin Cook's going to be playing in this game. So for whatever reason, if you have a fantasy final this week, if you're still playing in week 17, definitely check out the Dalvin Cook reports. I think this is typically a game. I don't think Matthew Stafford's going to be playing. If that's the case, this might actually be a game where you bet on the Vikings. Because for whatever reason, the Vikings just always win games like this. Like week 17, it doesn't matter, and they just roll over their opponent. The Vikings usually dominate like bad teams. Detroit's pretty bad. And not only are they bad, but they're bad without Matthew Stafford, like very bad. Like they're the worst team in football without Matthew Stafford. So if Stafford is not playing, this almost becomes an auto bet for me, in my opinion, for the Vikings. I don't care what the spread is there. I think it's under a touchdown right now. I think it's 6.5 right now. So if that's without Stafford, I am taking the Vikings 100%. With Stafford, the game becomes very competitive, in my opinion, without Dalvin Cook. Because here's the thing. I usually don't value running backs that way in the difference between winning or losing. But Dalvin Cook is one of those guys in the league where if you take him off the Vikings, the run game of the Vikings gets significantly worse. We've seen it. It's indicated by the numbers. So I would say that the Vikings win regardless. But I think if it's with Stafford in the game for Detroit, it's a lot closer. It's more exciting. At least you could turn on the game at the end of it and just see who wins, probably in a one-possession game. But if Stafford doesn't play, I think this becomes like Justin Jefferson goes off, Vikings win by like 17, like something like that. So I'm going to say Vikings win regardless. The spread, I guess I'll take Minnesota, but I don't know. Who cares? Next, the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. This game also doesn't matter, which is weird to say about a week 17 New England Patriots game unless they usually had the bye. But that's not the case either. They're out of the playoffs. The Jets are as well, of course. The Jets, honestly, have been the better team over the past 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know what I'm rooting for here as a Patriots fan. I'd like to see New England get a higher draft pick, but I also like to see them finish this season strong. There's going to be a lot of young players playing in this game, I do believe. And like they were versus Buffalo on defense at the very least. I think Belichick will be trying some things out, just kind of like throwing a roster out there to see, maybe get an indication of what some of these young guys can do in some situations where maybe like a typical veteran would be playing. That's probably what you're looking for on both sides, is like the younger players to pop. So for New England, that would be Josh Uche or Kyle Duggar, possibly, I don't know, a corner or two, but I don't know, defensive lineman. But for the Jets, it's again, Becton's been there all year, but you're looking for Sam Darnold to prove to you if he should be willing to be kept, or you look at the defense, some of the younger guys on defense. So I think this is more a game to just see for next year who might be sticking around and who can you build your roster around and who can you trust in the offseason to not have to fill those positions for both teams, because both need a lot of work. I think that I want to take the Patriots. Honestly, I think the Jets could easily win this game. I don't even know who the quarterback's going to be for New England. I suppose it's going to be Cam. If it's Cam, I'll take New England to win. If it's Jarrett Stidham, I'll take the Jets to win. So basically, whatever happens there with the quarterback decision, I will lean either way, and that's my official pick. If Stidham plays, I think he's not going to do anything. This offense is so bad and so infuriating to watch. The Jets, they probably moved the ball a little bit. I mean, the Patriots defense has been pretty bad. Honestly, I have no idea who's going to win, and I don't really care. But I'll probably be tuning into a little bit just to see how it goes. So, yeah, I'll take the Patriots to finish strong with Cam, but if Cam doesn't play and it's Stidham, I'll take the Jets. Next, the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills are favored by 2 currently, and that might have changed before or after I did this graphic, to be honest. Now, I've heard inklings that Buffalo is going to be sitting their players. I'm not 100% sure. If they are, this basically becomes a lock that Miami is going to win, because if Josh Allen doesn't play, and Matt Barkley plays, then yeah, Miami's going to win. If Josh Allen plays and the Bills try to win, the Bills are going to win. So this is a game where it obviously matters. So let's take a look before I give you my pick on what could possibly happen. So Buffalo, they win and they get the number 2. It is locked and it is loaded. If they lose, they need Pittsburgh to lose to get the 2. The special ingredient there is that Pittsburgh has already indicated that they will not be trying in their game versus Cleveland. So it gives them more incentive to sit their players. Pittsburgh, with a Buffalo loss, would then get the number 2. So the reason Buffalo would play their players would be because Pittsburgh beats Cleveland. But because, and I believe they play at the same time, because Pittsburgh is not playing their players, I think Buffalo will sit their players. So I think that means Miami will win. And based on this spread, I would be taking Miami right now. I might not bet a lot of money on it, but if I were to bet on games this week and take a chance on the information that you could have that would give you a big leverage spot, right? I would take Miami right now as soon as possible because I think that's what's going to happen. Now, I could be wrong, but I think that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to take Miami to win outright. I'm going to predict that Buffalo does not play a lot of their starters and that they pretty much rest everybody and they allow Miami into the playoffs. And here's the thing, though. It's worth a small bet, in my opinion, because if Miami plays a Buffalo without Allen and company, they'll win easily. So, it's a lock and loaded bet. So, to me, it's worth a small investment, but obviously you need to keep aware of the information that may be out there. And I think that's why the line has been moving a little bit. I think it started a higher number and it's been moving down. And I don't know as much information as other bettors out there, other professional bettors. And what indicates to me is that Miami is probably going to win this game based on the information I've seen. So that's where I'm going with that pick. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is favored by double digits, 10.5 in this game. Cleveland, 10.5 over Pittsburgh. So obviously that information has been out there. Mason Rudolph is starting. The Steelers are sitting many of their starters. And that would mean that basically Cleveland, if they win, they're in. So let's take a look at the playoff scenarios here. Cleveland wins, they're in. If they lose, they're out. Okay? Because there's Cleveland, Miami, Indianapolis, all fighting for wild card spots, as well as Baltimore. If Cleveland wins and Miami loses, Cleveland is the 6th seed instead of the 7th seed. If Miami wins, Miami is the 6th seed, Cleveland is the 7th seed. So that's important information. Cleveland should win this game quite easily. I don't expect Pittsburgh to play like any of their, not just Ben, but I don't expect them to play like Minka or Hayden or TJ Watt or any of those important players to their defense, which to me is basically the reason Pittsburgh would be in this game, even with Rudolph. And because I don't think that will be the case, I think Cleveland will win, and I will take Cleveland to cover. I'm going to say it's going to be like, without those players playing, let's say 27-13 Cleveland. Like, that's my prediction. So I'll take Cleveland. They should be able to win this game regardless of if they cover the spread or not. I don't think this will be a bet spot. I don't think, unless I get more information of, is TJ Watt playing? Is Minka playing? Like, I'm not going to bet on it unless I know that stuff. But if I know that stuff, then I may think about it. But the line kind of indicates that that's the case. So that's what you kind of got to be thinking of when you get to week 17 is like, what is Vegas suggesting here? Are they suggesting that Cleveland is going to, basically roll over a backup Steelers team? And that's kind of what this line suggests thus far. So Cleveland, I will take to advance to the playoffs, win this game, and I will also take them as of now to cover the spread. Next game is the Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, I'm almost certain, I need to check this, just double check that Jared Goff will not be playing in this game. So let's check this out. I just want to search Jared Goff. I don't want the wrong information. So, Jared Goff underwent surgery 2 days ago on his broken right thumb. I've had broken right thumb. I never had surgery. It says he's unlikely to play Sunday. That was 2 days ago. John Wolford is Goff's backup and is now in line to start. He has never played an NFL game. He's never started an NFL game. I don't think Jared Goff will be playing on Sunday. Even if he does, it will be at less than 100% for sure. I think he's probably doubtful. Adam Schefter said that the hope is that he could be back for the postseason. Goff and Henderson are both out for week 17. So, just based on that, like if Goff were playing this game, I would think that McVay would find a way to outcoach Cliff and they would win the game. So, based on this line right now, I like this as a bet to take Arizona just because of Kyler Murray versus John Wolford. Like, that difference to me is just out of this world. Cooper Kupp is also not playing, as indicated by one of our commenters. So that's also a massive loss. The Rams need to win this game, though, which absolutely sucks that they're stuck in this spot. But hey, if you just would have beat the Jets, it wouldn't have mattered. All right? But that is actually a good thing for the rest of the NFC because I think they would much rather play the Cardinals than the Rams. But that's just me. I think... So let's go through the scenarios and then I'll give you my official pick. So the Rams are currently number 6, I believe. If they win, they are in. If they lose, they need Chicago to lose to get in. Okay? Chicago, they win and they are in. We'll get to that game. But if Chicago wins, the Rams are out, I believe. The Cardinals, on the other hand, if they win, they are in. If Chicago wins, Arizona is not the 6 seed, they're the 7 seed. If Chicago loses, they're the 6 seed. Yeah. That's how it would play out. So Jared Goff is not playing. Cooper Kupp is not playing. Darrell Henderson is not playing. Their defense is intact. To me, the Rams will have to win this game 13-10 if they want to win. I don't see that happening. I think the Cardinals do enough. They play smart enough on offense. They don't give the ball away. Their defense does a good job versus a backup Rams offense. And the Cardinals win this game. I don't think the Cardinals are a better team, but because the Rams have so many major injuries, I will sway towards Arizona to win this game and to cover the 3-point spread. So we'll see how that plays out with the rest of the games here. All right. The Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Green Bay minus 5.5. Green Bay favored by nearly 6. This game's huge for Chicago because Chicago, they win, they are in. Now, what I have written down here is if Chicago wins and Arizona wins, Chicago is the 6th seed, I think. And the Rams win. We'll go over all this in the playoff machine. It's very convoluted. If the Rams win, they're the 7th seed. The Chicago Bears are the 7th seed. If they lose Chicago, they need the Rams to beat the Cardinals to get in the playoffs. So if Chicago loses to the Packers, which Vegas thinks will happen, Chicago needs the Rams to win the game versus the Cardinals, which we already said is kind of unlikely based on the Rams' injuries. This game's really interesting. I think this game's going to be really good. This might actually be the stream of the week over Dallas and New York. Because this game, like regardless, both teams will be fighting hard. They'll be trying to win. Green Bay, if they win, they get the number 1 seed lock and loaded. If Green Bay loses this game, okay, I don't think they have the number 1. Seattle, okay, let me go through it on the playoff machine because I don't want to screw this up. Okay, so if Green Bay loses this game, Chicago wins, they need, if New Orleans wins the game, they still are 2nd seed. If Seattle beats San Francisco, then that moves New Orleans to the number 1 seed, Seattle to the 2nd seed, and Green Bay to the 3rd seed. So this game is a drastically table-turning NFC game. Because if Green Bay loses this game, which is possible, because Chicago is trying to fight for the playoffs, they're playing very well, they're a divisional opponent, it's in Chicago. If Chicago wins this game, Green Bay moves from the number 1 seed with the bye, hosting every opponent in Lambeau Field, to going to probably the number 3 seed. Because if New Orleans wins their game versus Carolina, haven't predicted that game yet, and Seattle beats San Francisco, which both teams are favored by about a touchdown, then that is a huge, huge turning point for Green Bay because they would fall not from the 1st to the 2nd, but the 1st to the 3rd seed. Now, if Green Bay loses and New Orleans loses, Green Bay becomes the 2nd seed. Seattle becomes the 1st seed. Okay? If Green Bay loses, New Orleans wins, and Seattle loses, Green Bay's still the 1st seed. So if Green Bay loses this game, they need the 49ers to beat the Seahawks. Now, if Green Bay wins, they clinch it, and as we went over, Chicago would need some help. Chicago would need the Rams to beat the Cardinals to get in. So that are all the scenarios there. So in terms of that, I believe that I have to go with the Packers. Now, I do think Chicago has a realistic chance of winning this game. The way they're playing offense, the way they're running the ball, Trubisky's playing well. If he plays mistake-free, he gives this team a chance. But the first game, we saw Aaron Rodgers torch this defense. And I think for this team to have a chance, they need their defense to play well. And I just don't know if Chicago's defense, they played really well early in the year, but they have not been playing as well. That's something that's gone under the radar. Chicago's offense is playing better. Their defense is playing worse. And the Packers dominated the first performance. Aaron Rodgers dominated the first performance. So I see Green Bay winning, but I wouldn't be shocked if Chicago won. So because of that, I'll take the 5.5 points with the Chicago Bears because I like the way they're playing. It's a divisional matchup, and I think it will be a hard-fought game. So that might be the game of the week right there. Chicago, Green Bay. That's a really interesting one. Next, the Jacksonville Jags and the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this game also matters because the Colts need to win to get in, to have a chance to get in, that is. So Indianapolis is favored by 14. Now, let's get past the semantics. I think Indianapolis will win the game. No doubt about it. Yes, they lost week 1. That's even more incentive why they'll win. And I think they're going to blow the doors off Jacksonville, especially at home. So now that that's out of the way, Indianapolis needs to win, and they need Miami, Baltimore, or Cleveland to lose. So they need Miami, Baltimore, or Cleveland to lose. Cleveland to Pittsburgh, Baltimore to Cincy, or Miami to Buffalo. Now, most likely, that would be Buffalo beating Miami and the Colts are in. Most likely. But as I said, I don't know if that's going to be the case. But it doesn't matter to Indianapolis. They're still going to fight to win this game. So I'm taking the Colts to win, and I'll also take the Colts to cover pretty big. I think Jacksonville's pretty much done. They've wrapped this season up. Next, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos. Raiders are favored by 2.5. This game does not matter, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'll take the Raiders, I guess. I think John Gruden, he usually gets his teams up for even games that are kind of meaningless. And Derek Carr is the better quarterback here. I do think Denver has the better defense. This game will be an absolute crazy fest, but I don't think anybody will be watching. I'll just take the team with the better, more reliable offense. And in my opinion, the better coach. I'll take the Raiders to win the game and finish their season off strong. I'll also take them to cover, I guess. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, wait, I already did that one. Where are we at? This one. All right. New Orleans at Carolina. New Orleans favored by 6.5 over the Carolina Panthers. Panthers looking to play spoiler in this game. That's really the only thing they have going for them. New Orleans, on the other hand, they are looking to secure a seed. So I do believe New Orleans will be trying to win this game. So New Orleans, if they win versus Carolina and Green Bay loses versus Chicago, they get... Sorry, let's go over this again. A lot to say. So they need to beat Carolina first and foremost. They are 6.5 point favorites. I believe the Saints win this game because I believe they will be trying to win this game. I don't think it will be easy, but they'll win the game. Then you have to look at Green Bay losing to Chicago and Seattle beating the 49ers. Okay? So Seattle needs to beat the Niners and Green Bay needs to lose, I think. Let me check. So Seattle wins and Green Bay loses. The Saints are the number 1 seed. Saints win versus Carolina. Green Bay loses to Chicago. And Seattle beats the Niners. Now, if Seattle loses, though, Seattle loses to the Niners, Green Bay is still the first seed no matter what New Orleans does. But this game, I believe, is at the same time. So, or maybe earlier. I'm not quite sure there on the time. But so New Orleans, regardless, is going to be fighting to win and just waiting for the results of the other games. All right? Panthers might be able to make this one competitive. Here's the key difference to me, though. I think New Orleans, because they know the Sean Payton, right? Carolina's offense is the Sean Payton system. So the Saints have an inherent advantage there, as well as the fact that New Orleans just last week ran all over Minnesota. They should be able to do the same thing to Carolina. Carolina's run defense has not been good all year. New Orleans should be able to dictate pace of play running the football on Carolina. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to match the New Orleans offense. So I think New Orleans wins the game regardless. Now, maybe they cover the spread. I'll take New Orleans because in a similar game last year, New Orleans just bullied the Carolina Panthers. Like, it was ugly. So I'll take the Saints both ways, but I don't hate if you take Carolina there on the spread. Now, I think New Orleans is going to win, and then we'll get to the next game, which I believe is going to have some incentive there. So the next game is the Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, I don't think, right, Henny is playing. Mahomes is not playing. I don't know if Tyreek or any of these other guys are playing. I would assume Tyreek's not playing because he's already a bit hurt. Travis Kelce, I would assume, is also sitting in this game. So because of that, I think this is a spot where Justin Herbert looks good. You know, he goes out his rookie season on a high note. puts up some numbers versus the Chiefs, and the Chiefs fall to 14-2 instead of going 15-1, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just historically, teams that go 14-2 are like more likely to win the Super Bowl than teams that are 15-1. It's like one of those weird things, but just like numerically, teams that go 14-2 just seem to win the Super Bowl more often than teams that go 15-1. I don't know. Maybe that's just a personal bias thing that I've seen over the years, but I believe that is true. Now, I think Kansas City, if they lose, it doesn't matter. They already have the first seed locked up. They have nothing to play for. Chad Henne is playing. I think with Chad Henne, they do not win this game. Chargers usually play them tough regardless and usually do a good job versus the Chiefs offense regardless. The Chiefs are resting. I would take the Chargers to win the game. The spread is not available, though, because I think they're still waiting to know some information. If you do know the spread, let me know. Next, this is a game I was talking about with the Saints. So this is a big game for the Saints to look at on the scoreboard while they're playing. So Seattle plays the Niners, and this is a rivalry game, which I think it's entirely possible that San Francisco could pull off the upset here. It's not out of this realm of possibilities. I think it's possible, but I will be picking Seattle to win the game because, again, Seattle has incentive to win the game. So Seattle, if they win the game and New Orleans loses, they get the number 2 seed. Okay, they move up one spot. If Seattle wins and New Orleans wins, Seattle gets the 3rd seed, which they currently hold right now. If Seattle wins, right? If Seattle wins, New Orleans loses, and Green Bay loses, Seattle is the 1st seed. So Seattle does have something to fight for. Because if they do finish 12-4, and the Packers lose to the Bears, and the Saints lose to the Panthers, there's a possibility that they could get the bye. So because it still exists that there's a possibility that they could get the bye, that's why they'll try to win. With CJ Beathard at quarterback for the 49ers, I just don't believe they have enough at that position to win this game. Now, I think that the 49ers are going to do everything they can to make this game close, and I think Kyle's going to coach them up, and they're going to try and win this game and upset and play spoiler and all that stuff. I just don't think it will be enough. I think Seattle should be able to win this game. Their defense is playing better. I think this is a tune-up game for Seattle, regardless of the outcome of where they land, number 1, number 2, number 3 seed. They want to go into the playoffs with momentum. So because of that, Seattle will win. You know what, though? I don't know if they're going to cover, though. I'm not 100% sure if they're going to cover. I'm not confident in that. I think Seattle might make this game closer than it should be because that's just Seattle. Next game is the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. Tennessee favored by 7.5 points. The Titans, this is another game that does matter towards the Titans. Tennessee favored by over a touchdown and an extra point. They should come out the winners here. The Texans are a bad team. They have a bad defense. They only have Deshaun Watson and Brandon Cooks. And that's basically it. So the Titans, being that they need to win this game, okay, go through it. So Tennessee, they win the division. It's locked. It's loaded. AFC South is the Titans. If they lose, they need Indianapolis to lose to Jacksonville. And then they fall to a wild card spot. So if the Titans lose, they're still in the playoffs. But if the Titans lose and the Colts win, they lose a home game in the wild card round. So the Titans will fight to win this game because they want the wild card home game versus a wild card team, right? So the Titans are going to win this game. The Texans can't stop the run. The Texans can't stop the pass. And they rely too much on their quarterback. I do think Watson keeps this one competitive. I think he'll score. I think he'll move the ball. I think I'm going to take the Texans, though, with the points. I'm going to take the Texans. I think it's going to be like 31-24. They're barely going to cover, something like that. I think this game's going to be close, but I think the Titans find a way. They're just a better team. It's a divisional game, though, so you never know. But Titans should be able to come out the winners. All right, and the final game is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Washington football team. Washington favored by 1.5. From what I've heard, Philadelphia is actually considering resting some players, including Fletcher Cox and a couple of the veteran players, which is interesting because they're not making the playoffs, but like they have nothing to fight for. Maybe they're trying to reserve them for injuries. Maybe they're older. They don't want to put the wear and tear on their bodies. Maybe it's just because they're hoping they lose and get a higher draft pick. I don't know what it is, but if that's the case, this is one to pay attention to. Because if the Eagles don't suit up a lot of their veterans like Fletcher Cox, I would heavily consider betting on Washington. But I would not bet on this game until close to game time, until you at least know that information. So if you know that information, which I've heard rumblings that could be the case, I would sway towards Washington's side. If this game's played straight up, I'm still going with Washington, but I don't think it would be like a blowout by any means. I think it would be a one-possession game, and I think the Eagles have a chance to win. But here's the key difference to me: if Washington and the Eagles play straight up, and it's just everyone's playing, I think the difference in this game is as long as Alex Smith plays, Washington's front seven is going to be overwhelming for the Eagles offense. Their offensive line gives up far too many sacks, far too many pressures. They're starting a rookie quarterback. They don't really have a lot to threaten them with. I think, it would take a miraculous effort from the rookie to pull this one out for the Eagles, I think. The Eagles defense wouldn't fare too poorly on the other side of things. I think it would be a defensive game. But I think we've seen a couple times this year that front seven has been able to win games single-handedly, and I think that would be the case in this Sunday night game if they played straight up. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I actually think the Eagles are going to rest a couple players. So I'm going to go with Washington, and I'm going to say that they do cover the 1.5, and they advance to the playoffs. Unfortunately, because I'm hoping it will be the Cowboys or even the Giants, but Washington is probably going to make it. I know some of you guys are rooting for that, but personally, I'm not. Just because I feel like Washington is just boring. I just don't want to see them in the playoffs. But Washington would get the honors of playing Tom Brady in the first round and hosting a playoff game in the NFC East. If they win this game, Philadelphia is out. That's all you need to know. If Washington loses, the Giants and the Cowboys, the winner of that game advances to the playoffs. Those are the playoff scenarios. So let's go. And I'll give you my picks through the playoff machine. So this is where I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to show you basically like my picks. If my picks happen, this is what the playoffs would look like. All right. So let's take a look. So let's clear everything because I was messing around going through all the scenarios. So let's clear everything. So going through my picks, let's pop up my face too. Oh, let's just zoom in. Okay. There we go. So Buffalo, Miami. I have Miami winning. Okay. I have the Colts beating Jacksonville. I have the Patriots beating the Jets. That game doesn't matter. I have the Raiders beating the Broncos. I have the the Chargers beating the Chiefs. I have the Ravens beating the Bengals. I have the Browns beating the Steelers. I have the Packers defeating the Bears. I have the Cowboys over the Giants. I have the Saints taking care of business. I have the Cardinals over the backup of the Rams. I have the Vikings finishing on a high note over the Lions. I have the Bucks taking care of business. I have the Seahawks taking care of business. I have the Titans beating the Texans. And I have Washington beating the Eagles. So that's what my playoffs would look like. I would have Kansas City as the number 1 seed in the AFC, Green Bay as the number 1 in the NFC with the byes. My AFC matchups would be Buffalo taking on Cleveland in Buffalo, Pittsburgh taking on Baltimore for the 3rd time this season in Pittsburgh. I'd have Miami in Tennessee to take on the Titans. Flores versus Vrabel. I'd have Los Angeles, the Rams. Even though they lost, I would have them over the Bears because the Bears lost. Facing New Orleans in New Orleans, which would be a heck of a game. If Jared Goff's ready to go and Cooper Kupp's in there, I think that game would be awesome. The Cardinals and the Seahawks in an NFC West game. The Tampa Bay Bucks in Washington over the Washington football team. So there you go. Those are the matchups that I see taking place. Now we could go through a couple things that would happen. So obviously, if Washington loses, I would have Dallas in the playoffs. And the other one that I think there's some things that could sway here. So if Buffalo does play their players, I think that would mean that it changes the playoffs to Indy versus Buffalo, Cleveland versus Pittsburgh, Baltimore versus Tennessee. Ooh, that would be good. So those are all the matchups, guys. And if Chicago were to win, Chicago would get in. The Rams would be eliminated. If the Rams would win, then the Cardinals would be eliminated. But that is pretty much everything that would make sense for me. Like, I think Baltimore is for sure going to win. I think the Colts are for sure going to win. I think Cleveland's for sure going to win. I think Tennessee's for sure going to win. I think Tampa Bay is for sure going to win. So those are kind of like all the for sures. The ones that could sway are Buffalo, Miami, Green Bay, Chicago, Seattle, San Fran, Eagles, Washington. Those are the sway games. But the others are pretty much locks in my opinion. So there you go. My picks for Week 17 and for what is projected to be the playoff slate for Wild Card Weekend. If you enjoyed, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV. And now it's time for your comments and your questions. Let me know in the comments what you guys have. Let me know. All right. Mark says that Tampa doesn't want to see the Cowboys or the Giants. District says Tampa wins easily over Washington. District says Miami can beat Tennessee. Omar says the Falcons and Jets with them upsets. Tampa says Chase Young is going to feast on Tampa. Mark says if the Giants got to see the Bucks, might be an upset. I don't know if the Giants can score any points versus anyone at this point. I don't know. I don't know. Bethel says the Jags beating the Colts. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Isaac says, imagine if the Giants and the Cowboys tie. Yeah, that would be the NFC East for you. Omar says Jets with the upset. I mean, that's not really an upset, but this says, oh, dang, that's messed up. They should give the kid a second chance. I don't know who you're talking about. Haskins? Without Alex Smith, the Eagles win. That's probably true. AJ says, I think Dallas have started back doing good and maybe the Eagles can win for Dallas. Maybe. What's the lock of the week? Like straight up? I think the lock of the week is Baltimore. Monty says, Mitch, you're the best. Thank you. Parlay this week. Hey, subscribe to Patreon, guys. If you want the parlays. Yo, where'd my Patreon graphic go? I don't got it. Subscribe to Patreon. Make sure you join that Discord. All the links are in the description. Opium says, Mitch, why are you live streaming? You need to be ready to be on the field against the Cards. Lead us. Where's Blake Bortles? Why isn't Blake Bortles the quarterback? Samuel says, what would happen if the Cowboys and Giants tie and Washington loses? Good question. So if the Giants and Cowboys tie and Washington loses, Cowboys would be in the playoffs. So maybe the Cowboys' goal is to tie. Are the Giants good? No. Coach says Rams, Saints. Wow, Saints out. Maybe. I would probably be the ideal spot for the Rams. I don't think like they don't want to play in a weather game. I guess they would rather play Seattle, I think. But New Orleans in a dome, it gives Goff a good chance. Do you think the Giants are good? Again, is that the same question? No. Who's better, the Chiefs or the Bills? Right now, the Bills are playing better, but I still don't know that I would bet on them in a game versus the Chiefs. District says, I have the Browns for $5 to win the Super Bowl at 50-1. Nice. I don't think they'll make it past the first round, but it's worth the investment. Do the Giants have potential? Maybe. Dion says, lots of playoff picks, sitting players week 17. Lots of playoff locks. Sitting players week 17. Yeah, there's a lot of players or a lot of guys that are sitting, and teams have already kind of made it known. Like Pittsburgh has already made it known what they're doing. Bethel says, Mitch, don't you feel the Niners have to win this weekend so they can have a happy ending to a nightmare season? No. I mean, they'd like to, I'm sure, but they don't have to win. Mark says, you crazy to think that the Rams can beat the Saints in New Orleans? Goff has a broken thumb. Goff's going to play in the playoffs, though. Tampa says, how come everyone in sports media and fans love to mention us only beating one playoff team, which is the Packers, but nobody mentions the Saints beating only one playoff team, which is us? I don't know. Jonathan says, do you think the Browns and the Steelers can tie? No. Mark says, we have the healthiest team in the NFC. Who's that? Tampa? FSE says, Mitch, should we pick Fields, pick Wilson, or keep Sam? Good question. Honestly, I would like to see Darnold with a new coach for one year, and if it doesn't work, you're not going to do anything next year anyways. So I'd like to see Darnold with a new coach, pick a stud player, a receiver, or defensive player, and then if he doesn't work next year, then just move on from him and you can pick a quarterback next year. Samuel says, do you resting players could backfire in the playoffs? Do you think resting players could backfire? I think the Chiefs are in an interesting situation because they're resting players this week, but they have not played well for like 6 weeks, even though they've won. And because they have the bye, that would mean that they're resting players for this week, next week, and then they have a 2-week rest, which I think sometimes can be detrimental to teams. So I think it depends on the situation. Like Pittsburgh, I don't think that's going to be detrimental because it's only a week off. It's like having a bye, but a 2-week rest might be too much time, in my opinion. It's kind of results driven. Like if the Chiefs win, we're going to say, oh, you know, that was just great to have the week off. But if they lose, everyone's going to be like, oh, they shouldn't have rested guys in week 17. Like that's just the way it works. Thomas says, is Aaron going to choke in the playoffs like almost always does? I don't think it would be. See, here's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's ever actually choked. I think the one time you could say he's actually choked is 2011 when he faced the Giants. But then again, the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl. All year, the Packers were the better team. The thing is, like, I don't think Rodgers has ever actually choked because every time he lost to the team that was better. Now, has he had bad games? Yes, he played bad versus Atlanta in 2016, but Atlanta was better. He played bad versus Seattle in 2014, but Seattle was better too, even though he played bad in that game, and he was part of the reason they lost. But, like, I don't think every time a quarterback loses in the playoffs is because they choke. I think sometimes they just lose to the team that's better than them. Mark says, losing to Green Bay without Michael Thomas and losing on a fluke PI play, then crushing y'all, that's enough respect in the playoffs. Thomas says, resting players never works well. Opium says, will N'Keal Harry get 1,000 yards? Will N'Keal Harry play 1,000 snaps in the NFL? That's a better question. Random says, Mark, we didn't have Tay. Stop. Baz says Rodgers will win Super Bowl MVP. Tampa says, I hope the Ravens come out hot and steamroll the Chiefs in the divisional round like the way the Titans did. I mean, here's the thing with the Chiefs. It's entirely possible that they host the divisional game They come off 2 weeks of rest. They're losing at halftime by double digits. Like they always are. And then they just aren't able to come back. It's entirely possible. We saw it in every playoff game last year. Now, it's entirely possible that they're losing by double digits, they still win. Or it's entirely possible that they just steamroll the team they play. But I think like the narrative will be formed that, oh, the Chiefs, they shouldn't have rested players or whatever. I don't know. Jonathan says, could the Ravens go to the Super Bowl? Yeah, I do. I do think they can. So based on my playoffs, which I have Miami. So I think that the Ravens will play the Steelers in the first game. So I think the Ravens, I lean towards the Ravens there. And then that would mean the Ravens will play the Chiefs because I think the Bills will beat the Browns. So that would mean that the Bills would play Miami or Tennessee. And then the Ravens would play the Chiefs. Now, the Ravens would need to have their game script go appropriately, which would mean that they need to come out firing. They need to get up 14, and then they need to hold on. Which, if any team is good at winning like that, it is Baltimore. The Chiefs never had to play Baltimore in last year's playoffs. So, I don't know. It's possible. But the Chiefs have kind of proven that they also beat Baltimore the way that Baltimore is currently constructed. So if Baltimore did go to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, I think it would be because they beat the Chiefs. If not, I think they're going to lose to the Chiefs. So, yeah. Based on the way that I see the playoffs forming. Now, if the Bills beat the Dolphins, and let's say everybody plays, that would mean that the Ravens play the Titans in the first round. And then that would mean that there's a possibility that they don't see Kansas City till the AFC Championship game. Because Baltimore is the 5th seed, Tennessee's the 4th seed. That's kind of could go either way game. Pittsburgh would likely... Okay, so Pittsburgh-Cleveland is basically the turning point there. So if Cleveland were to beat Pittsburgh, that would mean Cleveland would go to Kansas City. But if Pittsburgh were to win that game, then they would face probably Buffalo. Like, I don't see Buffalo losing in the first round. So, no matter who they play. So, Buffalo is probably going to go the divisional round, but they have to play the top seed. So, I don't think a lot changes. Baltimore's most likely going to be in Kansas City in the divisional round. Most likely. No matter what. But, we'll see. Who do I think is better, Seahawks or Packers? I think the Packers are slightly better. I don't think any NFC team is like above the rest, though. There's like a pack of 4 or 5 that I think... I'll say a pack of 4 that I think is kind of like considered all in the same group. Omar says, what are the chances for the Bills to go to the Super Bowl? Pretty high. So I think Buffalo is very likely to get to the AFC Championship. Because Buffalo, I think, will win their first matchup, like I said, no matter what. And then they're probably going to end up playing Pittsburgh or Tennessee in the divisional round. And I would probably lean towards them winning that game at home in the divisional round. So they're probably at least going to get to the AFC Championship game. And in that case, they're going to play Baltimore or Kansas City. Now, they would have to beat Kansas City, or they would host Baltimore. So both of those matchups would be challenging, but I think the way that they're playing right now, I don't think you could say there's a team playing better football than Buffalo right now. So I think they do have a chance, for sure. Samuel says, do you like the original playoff format better? Yes, but that might just be bias because I've grown up with it and I've never seen this format before. FSE says this is the second straight year that the Packers weren't that good, but it got an easy schedule and carried by Rodgers and Adams. True, I think they're a little better this year. I think Rodgers is playing much better than last year. I think Adams is playing better than last year. I think Matt LaFleur has coached better than last year. Their defenses are about the same, though. Tampa says, who has the top 5 best defenses in the playoffs or just in the league? Don says, Mitch doesn't eat or sleep. He's not human. True. Bodo, what's up? He says Buffalo versus Kansas City, Buffalo versus Lambs. If they make Rams, do you mean the Rams or the Lambs? Jonathan says, do you think defense could win any offense? What? No, I think the Super Bowl will be won with offense. Now, I do think that the Super Bowl, here's the thing. You need a good offense to win the Super Bowl. You just can't have an absolutely terrible defense. You need a decent defense. You need like at least a competent defense. Make some plays, get a couple red zone stops, get a turnover a game or something. Like you don't need like the 85 Bears, but you need like a competent, like Kansas City's defense last year is plenty good enough to win the Super Bowl if you have a top upper echelon offense. If you're the Bills, if you're the Chiefs, if you are the Packers, maybe even the Bucks or Seattle, like if your defense is just okay, you could probably win the Super Bowl. I think there are certain teams in this field that need their defense to dominate. I think the Colts need their defense to play really well. I think the Ravens need their defense to play well, or probably better than most teams. Even though they can score, it's kind of in a different way. I think the Rams need their defense to dominate to get to the Super Bowl. I think the Saints need their defense to dominate to get to the Super Bowl too. And obviously Washington. But I don't even, like, Arizona, like, I don't even think they have a chance of getting the Super Bowl. Like, I think it's like -% chance. They could win the first game. They could beat Seattle if they play Seattle, like the first game, divisional opponent. Like they could beat them, but that's like as far as they go, in my opinion. Like Arizona's going to get crushed the second team they play if they were to win their first game. So, yeah, I've done the playoff machine ultra. I don't know if you missed it. Bodo said Buffalo seems to have the most balanced team. FSE says, Mitch, do you think the Niners would be the number one defense again this year if they stayed healthy? That's tough. I don't think they'd be better than the Rams. And I don't know. Maybe it's kind of hard to say. Like I still think they're like a top 10 defense, right? Statistically. I think they'd probably still be top 3 to 5. I don't know if they'd be number 1. There's not a lot of great defenses. Like Pittsburgh's got hurt too, so you got to keep that into account. Like every good defense also got hurt. It's not just that we had bad defense this year. Like I would say if Tampa didn't lose Vita Vea, they might have like the best defense. But since they lost Vita Vea, their defense is taking a step back. Since the Pittsburgh lost Bud Dupree and Devin Bush, they've taken a step back. In terms of dominance, like that's the thing with defense. If you lose 1 or 2 players, your defense is not, it's going to be drastically different. It's not going to be dominant. It might just be good, or it might just be okay. That's the thing with defense. Offense a little different because as long as it's the quarterbacks there and maybe a receiver or two, you should still be pretty good. It's not until you lose the quarterback that your offense just completely falls apart. Gary says, BLV, who would you rather have, Mahomes and Hill or Allen and Diggs? That's pretty obvious. I'd rather have Mahomes and Hill. Ultra says, do you think that Seattle can win the NFC? Yes. So I think the defense is playing well. They got some playmakers on that side of the ball, from Adams to Dunlap up front, Bobby Wagner, and Diggs is playing well. They have playmakers. Like they're not the greatest defense, but they seem to be playing better and better and better. And obviously you have Russell Wilson, who is clutch, and DK Metcalf, who's a big playmaker, Tyler Lockett. So yeah, I think they can get to the Super Bowl. Ultra says, sold on Green Bay, New Orleans, and Tampa as contenders, unsure of Seattle. Offense has been suspect. Yeah, that's the thing. Their offense needs to score like at least 27, like 24 to 30 points every game, and they have a chance to win every game. If they have a bad game from Russell Wilson, I don't think they can overcome it though. And sometimes Russell Wilson has those weird like bad games. And if they had one of those, I don't think they would be able to overcome, especially against like Green Bay or New Orleans. or Tampa. So if he had it in the first round versus like the Rams, they still might be able to beat the Rams because I don't like Jared Goff might have a worse game. So random dude said 2020 Bills remind me of the 2018 Rams. More playoff experience than the previous year with a great offense. They have a way better quarterback, though. Bodo says, we have 0 running game, so that's a scary thing. Monty says, Seahawks top 10 defense. I don't know. It's average. I don't think it's top 10. Sean says, Washington will beat the Bucks. Don says, Green Bay wins 12 games every year and gets smoked yearly, not sold. Miss 07 says, do you think that maybe Jim Harbaugh coming to the NFL, what team do you think he'll sign to? I don't think he'll be in the NFL. I think his last experience didn't end well. He's not a bad coach by any means, but I just don't think a lot of people like him, to be honest. And I think the game has a little bit passed him by. Like watching Michigan, they're not just, they lack creativity on offense, and they, like, even back in the 49ers, they were a team with so much talent. They played like a 1995 style of football in 2013, but they just got by because they were so talented. Like, remember how good that defense was? Like Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis and Justin Smith and Aldon Smith, and I mean, they were just ridiculous. Do I have any sleeper teams? I guess it depends what a sleeper team would be. I've kind of talked about them in every video, Gary. I think the sleeper teams in the AFC, Baltimore, and the NFC, Tampa Bay. I don't know if Tampa Bay is considered a sleeper team. I think Seattle is almost a sleeper team too, though, because not enough people are talking about Seattle. Do you think the Patriots' success was more Brady or Bill? Right now, it looks like Brady, but I don't know. Who's the top 3 defenses in the NFL? The Rams. Maybe Washington. New Orleans fully healthy is probably in the top 3. Who would I put third? Pittsburgh, maybe. Pittsburgh. Who else? There's not a lot of good ones, guys. Pittsburgh. I think it's probably Rams, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, top 3. Probably. But I don't know. Any defense is susceptible. LeBron, I'll let you know when my playoff picks come out. What teams do you think have 0 chance of making a run? Cleveland, Indy, Arizona, Washington. That's it. 0%. Maybe they win a game, but I don't think they could win 2 games. Like, I could see Indy winning a game. I could see Cleveland winning a game. I could see Arizona winning a game, but no, not a chance they win 2 games. 0% chance. Dion says you're sleeping on Miami, probably the best coach team. No, I'm not. They don't have a quarterback. Their offense stinks. Their offensive line sucks. You need an offense. Their defense is good. Their special teams is good. Their coaching is good. I agree, but I don't think I'm sleeping on them at all. Tampa says better defense between the Ravens or the Bucks. I'd probably go with the Bucks. I think they've been more consistent, and they can't be run on. So the Ravens can. I think the Ravens are more creative on defense. They have better corners, but I think the front seven, clearly Tampa Bay. Tampa has better talent. Yeah, I read the chat. Mark says respect. What's up, Mark? Samuel says Brady, Montana, LT, Sanders, Rice, top 5. Where'd that come from? Bodo says Pittsburgh has 0% chance of making a run. Bodo, you say that every year. I guess you've been right, but you say that every year. FSE says they also doubled down by getting Hopkins. Both great moves. Don't sleep on them. Are you talking about Cardinals? What's my Super Bowl prediction? You'll find out when I make my playoff picks. I don't really even know yet, so I haven't decided. Devin says Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl. Wolfgang says Chiefs Bucks. We have a Giants to the playoffs. Bodo says Miami has a top three pack pick, you mean? I think they need another quarterback. It's not a bad idea. Monty says Ravens or the Bucks will make the Super. Tama says, no, I don't want the Golden State Chiefs to make the Super Bowl. Steeler Nation says we'll win one game, but the Super Bowl will be the Chiefs and the Packers. That's a fair assessment. What's up, doggos? Says guitar-loving teen. Joseph says the Bills will squish the fish. CQ says Steelers Chiefs. What, AFC Championship? Thomas says Tom Brady will win the Super Bowl. Dark says, what's your record prediction? For who? Yeah, I know. It's been incredible coaching for the Rams defense, most of the part of it. And they really know how to use their best players really well. How do I feel about Lenny's video? The first one was phenomenal. Sean says, I don't think Tua is going to be anything special. He reminds me of Alex Smith. Hey, Alex Smith had a long, productive career. Monty says the Titans will win 2 games. Interesting. So they'll get to the AFC Championship again? Don is laughing at the fact that people think the Packers will make the Super Bowl. Goat says, hi, I love your vids. Thank you. Brian says, imagine the media if my Bears beat Green Bay. They would hate us for not giving Precious Rogers a bye week. District says, Devin Dalton is playing well in Dallas for only $3 million. I want him to play for the Niners next year for cheap instead of Jimmy's $28 million. Also, I love Fitzpatrick for $5 million. Joseph says Cardinals don't deserve to get in. Mark says Tampa Bay can't call anyone the Golden State anything. Y'all got half y'all team off waivers and friendly deals. Tampa says if the Jets let Sam Darnold go, that would be a steal for the Patriots. The Ravens will be awesome in the playoffs. I know it. Got a couple comments. What ended up happening with Des Bryant? He's on the Ravens. All right, guys. I think I'm done for the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's picks. Hope you guys enjoy week 17. Best bets tomorrow. No more start 'em and sit 'em because I don't do week 17. If you're still playing fantasy, tell your commissioner to change it. I'm actually going to be starting probably a fantasy challenge, and I'll put that in the description as well as in the Discord, and we can do that during the playoffs. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.